and that has been donated by Kingsville and Century United Methodist Men of Hartsville. And the ticket number is last four digits, 2642. 2642. Going once, going twice. All right, that one's on. Last four digits, 2541. All right, catch out, get some. We have another $25 gift card from Walmart, donated by the same group, and our ticket number is 2543. 2543. I think somebody's coming. Whose ticket was that? No takers on 2543? Oh. ROTC made it. $25 Walmart gift card. Congratulations. Another $25 gift card to Walmart. Mr. Blake's going to shake it up later this time. $29.29. Anyone? Come on, boy, get your gift card. All right, one more Walmart gift card goes to 2590. 2590.
Oh yeah, you want me?
Next, we're going to give away a $25 gift card to the Green Frog restaurant.
I don't want the
And that is ticket number 2624. 2624. Anyone? All right.
Yes. No.
Next, we have another $25 Walmart card donated by Pace Automotive, and that goes to number 2688. 2688. Congratulations. Another $25 Walmart gift card donated by Pace Automotive, and that is 2641. 2641. Another $25 gift card for Pace Automotive is 2887. 2887. Going once. There we go. All right, the next one is a $20 gift card to Baker's Sweet. 2724. 2724. Anyone? 2724. All right, going to the next one. 2701. 2701. All right, our next number is also a $20 gift card to Baker's Sweets, 2556. 2556. Anyone have 2878? Oh, I see someone coming. All right, $25 Walmart gift card donated by Pace Automotive. 2748. 2748. All right, come on down. All right, now we have a $25 Subway gift card donated by Walmart. 2614. 2614. No 2614? Okay. Here she comes. Alright, next one is a $25 Subway gift card donated by Walmart. 2546. 2546. No one? Oh, we got I can't see who it is.
I think it's funny Walmart donated Subway gift cards.
Alright, next we have two 32GB jump drives donated by Florence School District 3, and the number is 2476. 2476. Okay. Next one is 2807. 2807. Two eight five seven. 2857. Do we have someone?
I think it ain't nobody winning.
Next one is 2506. 2506.
The right person for that gift.
Alright, we have two 64GB jump drives donated by Florence School District 3, and the number is 2515. 2515. Anyone? Alright, how about 2555? 2555. Two five five three. 2553. Now somebody got that. All right, 2786. Oh wait a minute. Okay, Lacey High gets the jump drive. Yes. Oh, awesome. Thank you. The glasses usually hurt better than things. All right. The next number is 2786. 2786 for a print.
Oh, I want that.
All right. We'll go to the next one. That's 2860. 2860.
Nope. Jennifer.
All right. This goes to 2570. 2570. The next is another print, 2820. And another print for 2906. 2906. How about 2579? Yeah, I'm sorry. Two, 2797. 2513. 2513. All right. Last gift card we have for Baker Sweets for $20, and the number is 2670. 2670. Congratulations to all of our winners, and at this time, Mr. Blake's going to come to introduce our keynote speaker.
Dr. Ron Gonzalez serves as the superintendent of schools for the Ellsford Union Free School District. He's also served as an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and equity, high school principal, regional director, and teacher. As a principal, he led transformation efforts at Mount Vernon High School for 11 years. His visionary leadership led to improvements in student performance, stability for staff, and several family and community outcomes. Understanding the need for schools to leverage change, he launched and now serves as the president and CEO for Lead Where You Can Stand Corporation, a mentoring and leadership development consulting group. As a mentor, Dr. Gonzalez services doctoral students, principals, assistant principals, teacher leaders, teachers, and students. His doctoral research focused on the impact of educational seat time for Black African American students and economically disadvantaged students. This has helped him engage schools, districts, and even corporate businesses create inclusion, diversity, equity through access. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ronald Gonzalez.
Good morning. I think most of that stuff is true. The first time you write your bio, it's very difficult, so I just sort of handed that over to my wife and kids to write. I'm surprised I have a 15-year-old. He likes to just say everything, so I'm surprised there isn't more in there. I'm very, very happy to be here. I don't like podiums, so I'm going to do this a lot. I don't be comfortable with that. I'm very happy to be here. First, I have to recognize a few folks. So To Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Hickson, thank you for having me here this morning. I really appreciate the invite. To the educators and leaders in the room. But you know, a lot of this stuff, and I used to do this as a building principal, is you walk the halls in the summer, and there's only usually one group of folks that you see really still working hard. And if you're doing it with 21 camps and the things that are going on, can we please just take a moment to recognize our maintenance staff? Inside and out are immaculate, and you deserve some respect. I also want to recognize, where's my brother over here with the red and black velvet? So first, I want to recognize Gabe, right? So not only is he the second best person here, but let me tell you what I noticed, right? When the folks were coming up, he got out of his seat, he stood here to help us. That takes energy, right? And we're talking about the power of one for transformational impact. One person could do that for all the folks to feel safe coming up and down the stairs. So thank you for doing that. Also want to recognize Mr. Huckabee for helping me get set up with the situation here with my laptop and the presentation. I hope this goes well, and I hope it lands on you in a way that gets you charged up. Because I like to say Happy New Year. Right? This is our new year. As an educator, I hate buying the calendar books that don't start in June or July. Right? They all start in January. But for me, the new year starts in July. So I always welcome back my staff by saying Happy New Year to them. So we're going to talk a little bit about the power of one. And you have to start with what's at your core. What's at your core? Why did you become an educator? What positioned you to want to come down this path? And usually when I'm working with schools in a much more intimate setting, individually or with teams, we get them to write it out. And oftentimes, they write about an interaction they had with one of their teachers. Right? So if we think back to our 13 years K-12 experience, maybe pre-K through 12 educational experience, I am sure that you have one person that just stands out more than the others. For me, it's Mrs. Lassiter. She was my 5th grade teacher. And I will never forget Mrs. Lassiter because it was at that time where I actually took a love for math to another level. I hated math. It wasn't until I realized that Mrs. Lassiter was able to pull something out of me because of what was in her that helped me to develop a love for math. I didn't have to ask her to help me with math. It was already a part of who she was to pull that out of children, right? And I know that when we're doing this work, especially teachers in the classroom on a daily basis, we sometimes forget about ourselves. And you know, I promised the bishop that I said you're probably going to hear rumors. It's going to sound like I stole some of your material. I promise I didn't. But when you're pulling that information out of children, there has to be something inside of you to do that. Now, generally, we can't do that if we're not filled ourselves. My neighbor's grandmother, when I was growing up, I spent most of my time at my neighbor's house. She used to say to me, "A closed hand can't receive." Right? So if you have something, you're holding on to something so tightly, you can't receive something. Also, sometimes when folks get frustrated, we close our hands, we clench up. We're not feeding ourselves. You have to first take care of yourself so that then you can start to take care of others, right? And so that might look different for everyone. It could be faith time, it could be time in prayer, it could be time in meditation, it could be exercise, it could be talking to someone, it could be spending time with family or a pet. All of those things that we need to do on a daily basis to take care of ourselves, we have to do so that then we can take care of others. And if you look down this list, this looks like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You always want to start with the most fundamental needs. What I like to say is that there's some passion involved in there somewhere. Being an educator is a job you either love or you don't do. We don't do it for the money. We often forget about the impact we're having on children, actually. Right? Because I spent my entire career as a high school person. I started off as a high school teacher, as a high school principal. It wasn't until I got to the secondary level of assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction that I started to spend time around the younger kids. But what I like to say is that we have 4 years to change and transform lives. That's it, 4 years. So you're in this work to make some change, or you're not going to be in this work for long. Right? It's a job you either love or you don't do. And sometimes in those 4 years, you don't always, and for the elementary folks even longer, you don't get to see the impact that you have until well down the road, years later. Right? Years later, you get to see those students that come to you and thank you. Sometimes you never even hear the thank you. You just operate in faith, knowing that you're giving everything you have of yourself because of your passion and hoping that it sticks with those children for years to come and transforms their lives. So it is a profession unlike any other profession. We don't get to see the results all the time. And I'm not talking about test results. We don't get to see the results of building people and helping them to become better people so that they can live while they climb, right? So, you have to work on you. Let's make this a little interactive. So everyone have a phone? Take out your cell phone. I want you to text someone that's important to you. Brief text. Send them a quick text and say, hey, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. And you're important to me. And hit send. I guarantee that at some point throughout the day, they'll either ask you or text you back and say, wow, thank you. That was such a word of encouragement. And it doesn't need to be long. Sometimes for me, it's my mom. Sometimes for me, it's my children. Very short note just to tell someone else, I'm thinking about you, and you mean something to me. You're important to me. All right, we got that out of the way? Now I want you to send a text message to yourself. If you don't know how to do that, just type your number into the box and it'll come up. I'm going to read to you the message I sent myself this morning, right? In preparation for this. Where's my message to myself? Here it is. It says, hey Ron, you look good today. Your wife loves you, your kids love you. Remember to love yourself. I'm proud of you. That was my note to myself this morning. Because sometimes we forget, we get in this work and we forget, we're giving and we're giving and we're giving. But just like a closed hand can't receive, an empty cup can't fill another cup. And in moments, we have to take opportunities to make sure that we're caring for ourselves in ways that maybe someone else isn't prepared to or capable of caring for us, right? So, let's talk about what's at the core of the work that we're doing. This is a graphic that I use every speech that I give, irrespective of what the topic is. Why? Because in the field of education, we need to know what we're up against. Bishop called it a war, right? Think about the fact that from the 1980s, the state of California has only built one university, one new university, yet there are 22 prisons built in there. Now I know that as of late there are several reform laws that are in place, both at the Senate and the House level, that are looking to change this, but this is already done. There are already residents in both of those facilities. There are residents in the university, and there are residents at the prisons. Now who do you think those residents are? They are our children, mostly black and brown children, that with an educator that could have given them something to change their life and their trajectory could have possibly avoided one of those prisons. So when I took over Mount Vernon High School in New York, there were 13 principals in 13 years before me. I like to tell everyone I bought a new chair because the old one had an ejector. Very, very fragmented. And look, I went through the materials of all the principals that were there. It wasn't all bad stuff. They just weren't there long enough to implement change and to last the test of time. The high school graduation rate was 59%. Now, at the time in New York, 55% graduation rate was the standard. So if you had high school graduating 55% of your children, you were seen as a school in good standing in the state of New York. That means you were okay, the state was okay with 45% of your children not graduating. Now, what happened in 2010 is they quickly changed that rate from 55 to 80. So now you have to graduate 80% of your students to be considered a school in good standing. But they didn't really necessarily provide the resources to meet those needs. So around the time when I began my work in Mount Vernon High School, the state had done what's called a JIT, Intervention Review, the Joint Intervention Team. You get folks from the state, folks from the central office, a whole bunch of students come into classrooms, and they tell you everything that's wrong with the building. That happened in 2010. I took over the building in January of 2011. That's the middle of the year for schools in New York. Now, how many of you know that if you take a job in the middle of the year, you're walking into something, it's not going to be easy? So, on the heels of a JIT review that was very publicized, by the way, newspapers were writing up stories about how that school was. There had been fights on end, attendance was awful. Graduation rate was 59%, and for a long time, folks just felt like it was a vicious cycle of challenging behavior, lack of leadership, a number of things. Everything that can possibly plague a large city school was plaguing this large city school. And when I came in, I slowly but surely just started listening. I went on a listening tour, right? Met one-on-one with every single person in that building that reported to me. Every teacher, every teaching assistant, every custodian, every janitor, every kitchen worker, everyone that reported to me in that building, I gave them 15 to 20 minutes of one-on-one time. It took me about 4.5 months. I had a staff of 191 staff total and 160 certificated staff. So it took me about 4 months to do. But at the completion of those 4 months, I knew intimate details about every single person that was working and helping children at Mount Vernon High School. Slowly but surely, we started to change things. And I say slowly but surely because sometimes you need to have immediate change. Sometimes you need to understand that things will take a little bit of time. Turning around and reforming and creating transformational impact the way FSD3 wants to do it is going to feel like turning a cruise ship. Right? Anybody an avid boater? Or I own a canoe. When I want to turn my canoe, I stick my oar in the water and the canoe turns. If you want to turn a cruise ship, it takes dozens, sometimes hundreds of people to get the measurements of the waves, the weather, check what's underneath. A number of people have to participate in turning a cruise ship, and that takes time to turn a cruise ship, right? We were able to do some amazing things there. One of the things that I did was I focused on 3, and I use 3 a lot, right? So I focused on 3 distinct pillars for us to start creating change. It was around systems and structures, safety and security, and classroom environment. Safety and security was absolutely paramount. When I walked into Mount Vernon High School, we had a team of security officers. There were 33 security officers in my building. You couldn't tell which one was which unless you heard them yelling at someone. No uniforms, no uniformity. I had a security officer that would sit in a chair, turned backwards with weightlifting gloves on in the middle of the hall. And I would just walk around and just listen for my listening tour. Until finally you got to the point where I said, well, this isn't a park. Why is there so much yelling and screaming going on? It doesn't sound like a school, does it? A couple months into my tenure there, I took my whole cabinet. We were in cabinet meeting in my conference room. I said, all right, don't put your pens and pencils down. Let's go into the hallway. I planned it so it was about 2 minutes right before the bell rang. If you've ever been in a large comprehensive high school when the bell rings in the hallway, then you know what you should have expected. So we walk into the hallway. I have all my administrators standing there, and I said, all right, ready? Bell rings. Close your eyes. Some close their eyes, some, nervous, and their eyes kind of open. We go back into my conference room, and I said, all right, I want you to describe to me what you heard. And I am sure that you can come up with some of what those descriptors were that were not school, right? And so sometimes we have to take a step back just to take a look at what's the most important thing that can happen. We started with one thing. So your theme about the power of one is absolutely critical. Do not take it lightly. One person, one movement, one motto, one unit of people together can make a vast, vast difference in what happens. So we implemented things around safety and security, classroom environments, supporting adult development and expectations. We wanted to build our teachers and our leaders while we were also focusing on our kids to create some change. When we started talking about change, if it wasn't about kids, do not bring it up in cabinet. I remember one time, one of our technology folks from central office came in with his laptop. Now this was 2012. Comes in with his laptop and says, I have this new software we just bought. It's gonna send your voicemail to your laptop. And I said, how does that help kids learn? And he said, well, when people are looking for you, you can now, wherever you go. He was very excited about it. He said, wherever you go, you can hear your voice messages. And I said, how does that help kids learn? So very quickly, they understood that if it wasn't about helping kids learn, it was not going to be important to me. Why? Because just like Stephen Covey says, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. Do not allow yourself to get distracted with anything, politics, people's personal opinions, state test scores. All of those things are important, and we have to respect them. But do not allow that to change what you do on a daily basis. So, if we wanted to create a culture of care, again, we looked at 3 specific things. We created a funnel, and we knew that it was going to be about students, it was going to be about instructional impact, and it was going to be about organizational leadership. So we had to revamp and reshape a couple of things. Sometimes it's okay to do that. If you're baking a cake and you leave out an ingredient, don't eat the cake. You may have to start over and make the cake the right way. Now, we are not talking about children when we're baking cakes. Kids are not throwaways. We're talking about all the ingredients and all the stuff and all the things that we used to do. That was the most famous thing I used to hear when I first got there. Well, when we were really good, we used to do this and we used to do that. And I would say, change your behavior, change your thought process. I need everyone in my staff to replace I remember when with I can't wait until. Simple things, just like that, and it's got to be about kids, right? When you prioritize and you do this, you set a focus. Once you set the essential focus, what could happen is your school will become a culturally competent community that celebrates all of our diversity and how those diversities bring us together. That's just a sample. Real simple ingredients. It's not a secret. CRT, that's all over the news, right? You know what I call CRT? Culturally responsive transactions. How are you interacting with kids no matter where they are? There's a significant difference, by the way, between culture and climate. When we do this was actually part of my dissertation study when you type in school culture in Google or Google Scholar or any JSTOR or any of these research databases, and you'll get a plethora of definitions. Here's my definition, right? The difference between culture and climate. Culture is everything that makes you who you are. What we bring to the table. Every time I walk into central office now as a superintendent of schools, I am a Latin male. Every time I walk into the central office as a superintendent of schools, I'm a man of faith. Every time I walk into central office as a superintendent of schools, I am a father, I am a husband, I am a son, I am a brother. All of those things are culture. Climate is what you allow. Think of a thermostat in your house. What does the thermostat control? The climate. You want to get warm? You turn your thermostat up. You want to get cool? You turn your thermostat down. You can control the climate. Climate is what you allow. Culture is what we bring in. So when you start thinking about that in a different space, whether that be for your classroom, whether that be for the teacher's break room, whether that be for your school community, what identifies you, remember that we celebrate culture. We create climate. So all of the little things that happen, all of the things that transpire on a daily basis that contribute to what's happening in your building. If there's chaos in the building, that's the climate, that's not the culture. Don't you dare call those kids crazy. They're not chaotic. Your systems are crazy. Your systems are chaotic. If you do the same, we heard it earlier, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. So you have to change your way of thinking, right? One of the things I love is school districts, like here, we call ourselves family, right? If you know anything about families, you know there is a level of dysfunction in families. If you think there is no level of dysfunction in your family, you might be the dysfunctional one. So don't confuse team building and teamwork with family, right? Teamwork, Rick DeFore, who's a pioneer on professional learning communities, he does this speech about the difference between groups and teams. So I used a lot of that with our team when I was the building level administrator, when I became an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction for my team, and now that I'm a superintendent of schools, I'm doing this with our folks. When we talk about family, we have to be okay with that crazy cousin that you don't like to talk about. Who's part of your family. You have to be okay with those things, right? That means if we are really a family, don't ostracize the person in this district that makes, decisions that are not the most responsible or the most famous. Go help that person. Reach out. Because just as Bishop said earlier, we all have something to give. We all have a great idea. It's about listening for that great idea. It's about listening for the opportunities to engage and come up with a solution that is so innovative you would have never thought of it yourself. It took you tearing down your own walls to engage with someone that you probably would never have engaged with before. And how that can create a lasting change and a lasting impact. A couple years into my principalship, and by the way, leaders make mistakes, right? We need to be okay with the fact that we're going to make mistakes. So a couple of years into my principalship, I went out and I bought a ball that had Mount Vernon High School written on it. And it was our ball. And metaphorically, it stood for, at some point, somebody's going to drop the ball. What happens when you drop the ball? And I'll tell you what happens. In a dysfunctional family, what happens? You get the meeting after the meeting. In the parking lot, girl, you believe that they just dropped that ball? I can't believe the email that went out, and they're asking us to do X, Y, and Z. They need to just come into my class and teach every now and then. Or in the teacher's lounge. All the little conversations that take place. That means when you drop the ball, everybody stand there. Look, you dropped the ball again. There you go. Instead of, this was the exercise I did, we would walk around with that ball. And if I dropped that ball, sometimes on purpose, I would expect someone else to go pick up that ball and say, we dropped the ball, how can we fix this? When you get to that level, then you're talking about a level of trust, right? Then that power of one becomes a power of one. When you can get to the point where you are no longer relying on one person to make the decision and waiting for him or her to make a mistake, instead having full faith and confidence in that person that when they make the decision, you are going to support them so that if a mistake is made, we can clean it up together, you are in a different place. And this is what I like to, so this graphic, build the team so strong you don't know who the boss is. This really signifies the power of one in a deeper way that I think you can't just look at it on the surface, right? Because look at that ball going down the road. If someone else picks it up, now they're the boss. And so guess what's gonna happen? They're gonna be involved in day-to-day teaching, they're gonna be involved in other administrative tasks, they're gonna drop the ball. And then someone else has to pick it up. And now that someone that picks up that ball, now they're the leader for the minute. Now the way you do this is you build capacity and you build leadership skills. We did a years-long training on bias. Years it took us to get to the point where we finally felt comfortable letting down our own guards. And I'm talking about deep-rooted bias. Where if I'm sitting at, and we have interview committees, right? So if you wanted to work in my school, you'd have to go through at least three levels of interviews, because we really wanted to make sure that we wanted you, but we also wanted to make sure that you wanted us. So if you could last 3 sessions of interviews, that means you want to be with us, right? So we would go through 3 levels of interviews. And there were times during interviews, I have biases. That if someone answered a question a very specific way, I need to be checked. Because sometimes I would just shut down and say, oh, interview's over for me, that's it. For me, one of my biases is the word ask. Because sometimes we used to have English teachers come in and try to ask questions. And that's a bias of mine. It is, right? So if anyone during an interview said ask, the whole table would just right down. So I had to learn about how dangerous that was for me to behave that way. Think about that. How dangerous it is for me to not understand that person's perspective of a possible speech impediment, of just possible difficulties, of colloquialisms, of the way that we were brought up in different regions of the country. And it took a long time for my administrative team to feel comfortable with telling me, Ron, you're wrong.
All right.
And it was even more important that when they said that, I would say, you are absolutely right. How can I fit? What else can we do to help me get beyond that? So we started changing our approach to the hiring practice. We relied far less on how a person spoke and more about how they interacted with children. We changed our demo lessons. Anybody have to do a demo lesson to get your first job or your job on teaching? We changed our entire demo lesson structure, where we would have the students interact with the teachers just conversing. Because if you can converse with kids, I don't care if you're asking or asking, because that means that you're reaching them in a way that is important to them, right? So a couple of those things and some years-long training and bias and building people up that needs to go into that work, so that by the time you get to the point where you've built a team that is so strong you can step away from the work and it not skip a beat, then you're in a different place. So this is an exercise that educators use all over the country, and if you don't recognize it for the title, then I'm sure that you will. Everyone starts shoulder to shoulder in a line, and then the narrator reads out the narrative, and based on that narrative, you either take a step forward or take a step backwards. Now, as an educator, I'm starting my 26th year in education this September. I know, I started when I was 12. But this is my 26th year. I just completed year number 25 in education. So when I get up to do the equity privilege walk, which I've done dozens of times, I have a smile on my face. Because I know what the prompts are now, right? So some of the prompts to the equity privilege walk are, if English was your first language, your primary language growing up, take 2 steps forward. If you've ever been profiled by someone using stereotypes, take a step backwards. If one or both of your parents have a college degree, take 1 step forward. If you come from a single-parent household, take one step back. If you went to college, take one step forward for each degree that you possess. If your primary ethnic identity is American, take one step forward. And so it goes on, and what you start with is everyone shoulder to shoulder, and what you end with is a room with people scattered all over the place, right? Some people are far in the front, others are in the back. There's a smattering, it looks like a scatter plot, smattering of people all over the room. And of course, the larger group you do this with, the larger distribution of folks you're going to have. So every time I do this, I know exactly where I'm going to end up, in the back of the room. And when I looked at my leadership team, I started to think about what skills do they possess that can either help me navigate that room or me use them wherever they are on their journey in that room. We'll come back to the equity privilege walk in a bit. But I believe that, as I mentioned, using the power of student voice, right? Student voice and choice was always big for me. Just like I shared with that technology person that was thrilled about voice messages coming to email, how does that help kids learn? You have to ask kids what helps them learn. Very simple. Every school in the district should have a principal's advisory council. Principal's advisory council can be so powerful for you as a building leader, as a teacher, as a leadership team, that it will help you direct, redirect, and even change things in your building should they need be. There were times, there were moments where I would meet with my principal's advisory council where I would sit down and say to them, is this a note-taking session or not? Do you want me to write notes, or do you just want to talk to me about people? They will tell you everything. They will tell you which teacher's not getting homework, which teacher shows up late in class. They will tell you which bathroom is closed, where the fights are going to happen. They will tell you everything. Open up yourself a principal's advisory council. The way mine got started was a very unique and special journey, because when I was interviewing to become the principal at Mount Vernon High School, I'd gone through 5 levels of interviews. And one of the levels, it was the 4th level of interview, was we had to spend a half a day at the building. They broke us up into teams, we went and we visited classes, we had to give feedback to a lesson that we observed, and we had to engage with the school community for half the day. So we get started on our walk. Our team was being led by one teacher, one administrator, someone from central office, me, and we head down the hallway and the bell rings. So 1,500 students come into the hallways. The building had 1,485 students in the hallways. And the administrative team is now trying to whiz through the halls and bypass all the kids to get me to where we're supposed to be. One administrator sees a student, and as you can imagine, kids are just sort of meandering in the hallway. One of the administrators walks by a student and says, "Take the hat off." And the administrator just kept walking. So first of all, I have to think about that whole thing. That's part of that anti-bias training that we have to go through, and eliminating certain things about why kids wear hats. But the administrator just kept walking. He said, "Take the hat off," and just kept walking. And what do you think the kid did? Nothing. He kept his hat on. So I stopped. Now the whole team is busy trying to get me out of the hallways. That's what it felt like. So they walk up, they don't see me stop and engage with this young man. So I said to him, "Hey, young man, what's your name?" He said, "My name is Paul." I said, "Paul, do you know who that is?" He said, "I don't know who that is." I said, "He asked you to take your hat off, right?" He was like, "We run this school." I said, "Oh, perfect." I said, "I'm interviewing to become the principal of this school. So I expect to get the job, Paul, and when I do, I'm going to need your help." So the story goes that at the end of my dialogue with Paul, I said, "Now do me a favor, just out of respect, take the hat off." And now I walked away. Young man took the hat off. Now he may have put it right back on, he may have turned the corner and forgotten all about it. But fast forward to a few months later when I began as principal of Mount Vernon High School, and I go up to the secretary of the main office and said, "I need to find Paul." And she said, "Excuse me?" I said, "There's a student here named Paul." She said, "Yes, we have a lot of them. I need more information." Finally, we find out Paul, who he was, and I had him brought down to the main office. I said, "I'm here, man, and I need your help." And what ended up turning out from that little brief interaction, that one-on-one interaction, was me launching and creating my principal's advisory council, with Paul being the first person to sit on that council. every single year, I launched my Principal's Advisory Council. And every single year, I had one child who I call the Principal's Apprentice, who gets to have my personal cell phone number. It's never been abused. The reason why it's never been abused is because I developed relationships with them. So years later, Paul ends up graduating. He takes one of the multiple pathways route to graduation. So he was an African American student with disabilities. He had poor attendance. He fit all of that criteria of what everyone else calls a throwaway. We helped Paul to graduate through our automotive production courses. He's now still working at one of the body shops in New York where we had a partnership with. Because it was his interaction with me that helped me to figure out how I can help him. It wasn't vice versa. It wasn't pounding math down his, hitting him with the math book over the head so that through osmosis he learns it. It wasn't about worrying about test scores. It was about engaging with him in a conversation. So shortly thereafter, we were able to put together a group of students during one of the Principal's Advisory Councils, put together what they wanted to call classroom rules of engagement. So this is how they wanted to be engaged. This is the voice of children, folks. The only thing I did was add the period. Now they came up with a long list, but the list is actually longer than this. They were adamant about having these be the things that they wanted every single teacher and person in the building to know and do, right? So the first one is be productive in every class period, all period. You know what they said? Reason why we late is because the teacher don't do nothing. Sometimes that's hard to listen to. Second one, have an open mind to student ideas. Just because, especially in history, they would tell me, history, it already happened. What if we have a different interpretation of how it happened? Whoa. Be open to student ideas. The list goes on and on. So there are a couple of things here that, and I'll leave this information with you all. There are a couple of things here that we need to sort of take a step back. What would your kids say to you about your classroom, about your hallways, about your gymnasium, your cafeteria, about your school, about your space, about your district? Think of the power that their voice can provide in any future decisions that you need to make as it relates to their education. Folks want to bring in new curriculum programs. During my time as an assistant superintendent, I would say, all right, let me first ask the kids. And they would say, what? I would say, I want to ask the kids if they think this is a program that they would want to participate in. I'm not going to spend $60,000 on a software program if the kid is going to sit on it, and the students sit on it for the first few minutes and then never want to use it again. So flip it and use it from a different perspective so that folks really understand that they will know whether you are about kids. Right? So we talked about MathMile earlier and what starts from the core. And we have John Dewey, we have Bloom's taxonomy, we have all of these higher order thinking skill questions. Remember this, Maslow trumps Bloom every single time. There's a saying that says kids want to know how much you care before they care how much you know, right? If you're not meeting their most basic fundamental needs, and folks, that is what schools do. It is 2022. We are far away and removed from the thinking that schools are only there to educate English, math, science, social studies, and a couple encore classes. You are there to raise children. And you are there to raise the children that you have. The parents don't send you the bad ones and keep the good ones at home. They give you what they have. And it's up to you, yes, to be the counselor. Yes, to be the psychologist. Yes, to be the teacher, and the nurse, and the social worker. All of those things. That is what you bought into when you became an educator. Right? Maslow trumps Bloom every single time. You have to honor student voice. You can't do that if you don't know who your kids are. So, when you find out who they are, you can start to change little things to celebrate who they are differently. Right? So I talked about the equity privilege walk and how every time I participate, I know exactly where I'm going to end up, right? In the back of the room. How about the kids that are persevering through the difficult situations just to get to school? How are you honoring them? How are you celebrating them? How about those who have to work a job when they leave your school at the end of the day in order to help contribute to the house? How about those that used to work a job and because the workforce has changed so much, now don't have one, and that's all they think about instead of thinking about the lesson that you're trying to deliver? Where are you meeting those students? So the perseverance walk is a little flip on the equity privilege walk. And this is how I like to think of it, right? So, if English is your second language, take 2 steps pa'lante. That's forward, right? Now, your vocabulary as a bilingual person, and I can trans language with the best of them. As a bilingual person, now your vocabulary is at least 10,000 words greater than a monolingual speaker. If you had solo parties with members of your household all piled into the same room at night, and that's the only one that has heat on, take 2 steps forward. Perseverance. It's like that screwdriver that the bishop was talking about, right? I can picture that. If you grew up in a house with aunts, uncles, grandparents, all sorts of relatives, sometimes they were all there all the time, take 2 steps forward. Why? Because the antithesis to that is what we used to grow up calling the nuclear family, with just the mother, father, and the siblings in the household. You have to deal with, think of the executive skills that children are developing when they have to deal with the personalities of all of these different relatives, sometimes all at the same time. If you never knew what socioeconomic status you were growing up, take 2 steps forward. I never truly understood how difficult my parents had it. I grew up with a single mother. My mother finished school in 7th grade, ended up getting a GED. She became a secretary eventually in New York, worked her way up to become the secretary to the superintendent of schools, and then later on my mother became a translator for the courts, all with a GED. My father went to school from the age of 10 and a half to roughly 15, so about 4.5 years of his life he was educated. Dropped out of school, never finished. At one point was a superintendent of a building in the South Bronx where he would take everyone else's trash out. A couple years later, he built his own house with his 2 hands. So you don't need a formal education for others to tell you where you belong, right? This perseverance is what helps build character in your students that come to you every day. Here's my favorite. If while growing up you thought all the nursery rhymes only revolved around Peter Piper from Run DMC, then you take 2 steps forward. Now you're all going to be singing that song later. So here's what you need to realize, right? Normal is a setting on a drive. It is not who you are. It is not what you can be. You have to be anything outside of normal for the sake of the children that are coming to you every single day. If they see you as normal, you may never have an opportunity to reach in them like Ms. Lassiter did for me and get them to develop a love for whatever it is you're trying to have them develop a love for. So stop thinking about, well, here's what the curriculum says, this is what we have to follow. And if your administrator comes into your classroom and says, well, why aren't you on page 26? Well, Dr. Gonzalez at the keynote said, I can flex the curriculum a little bit. As long as you're doing the right thing for kids, everyone will understand. Everyone will understand. So, it's a short video that I have for you all about how we can all impact one person.
One day, a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy picking up starfish and throwing them into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he asked, "Excuse me, but what are you doing?" The boy replied, "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The sun is rising and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die. The man laughed to himself and said, but there's too many starfish on this beach. You can't possibly make a difference. After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the ocean. Then turning to the man, he said, I made a difference to that one.
Story of starfish. I love that because it's one starfish at a time. It's one interaction at a time. It's one child at a time. It's one decision at a time. Come together so that your voice, your power of one, becomes a collective one. When you can do that and you're making decisions for the best interest of kids, you will see significant change. When you do that in a way that identifies you as anything outside of normal, anything but normal, you can't be interested in what the folks out there have to say. Make FSD 3 different. Make FSD 3 something that people talk about is not normal. Make FSD 3 this year for 2022, 2023, the place that everyone else talks about being different. Because when you do that, you get to the point where you can make the declaration. This is something I have lived by. So now we're going to do this together. I want everyone to repeat this declaration with me, right? And then I'm going to let it sit with you for a minute. When you do this work, when you're operating in the best interest of kids, when people come to you with ideas that you can go back to them and say, how does that help kids learn? You cannot be interested or worried about what they think when they leave that room, so long as you're making the best decisions for kids. In your classroom, in the cafeteria, in the hallways, any interaction. Ready? So you're going to repeat this with me. Say, I am not responsible for what you think of me.
I am not responsible for what you think of me.
I am responsible
For
what I think of you
what I think of you
after I find out what you think of me.
after I find out what you think of me.
Thank you very much for your time. Remember to leave where you stand, no matter where you are in the room. Use your voice to create change at FSD. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. We thoroughly enjoyed that. Dr. Rodriguez. I had it right. Again, thank you for those words of encouragement and definitely something for us to think about as we begin this new school year. At this time, we're going to have our staff and school recognitions and awards. I'd ask Dr. Hickson and members of the district instructional team to come to the stage.
This is always an exciting time when we recognize starters, those individuals that have worked extremely hard to make a difference in Florence School District 3. Please know that we have so many of you. All of you work hard every day to make a difference for our students, but we have some that have been selected by staff to receive awards this year. So we're going to start with our Principal of the Year. I would like for these three individuals to come to the stage. Mr. T.J. Devine. Mr. Terrell Clemens. And Ms. John Cemetery.
Get your freedom.
Our third place winner, Ms. Jonte Singletary. Our second place winner, Mr. Terrell Fleming. Our principal of the year, Mr. T.J. Thank you all so much. Next, we'll have Assistant Principal of the Year. Will these three individuals please come forward? Mr. Ed Brogdon. Ms. Christy Anderson. And Ms. Samantha Johnson.
Blue, Miss Anderson.
Our third place winner, Mr. Ed Brogdon. Our second place winner, Ms. Christy Anderson.
Both of them.
Congratulations. At this time, we have some department winners. We're going to start with Bus Driver of the Year, Miss Christy Belquez. Our clerical staff of the year, and an assistant, Ms. Sheila Knotts. Building Maintenance Staff of the Year, Mr. Jerome Singleton. Food Service Staff of the Year, Ms. Tammy Young. Our Health Services Staff of the Year, Ms. Jennifer Fady. Our Classified Instructional Staff of the Year, Ms. Lindsay Golden.
I want something, it ain't here.
Our Instructional Support Staff of the Year, Ms. Abra Ballin. At this time, we're going to do our Classified Staff of the Year. We're going to bring all school winners up first. For Lake City Early Childhood, Miss Elizabeth Gamble. Main Street Elementary, Miss Sylvia Burgess. J.C. Lynch, Ms. Kimberly Page McCutcheon. Olanta Magnet, Georgetta Cash. Scranton Elementary, Ms. Rhonda Matthews. Ronald E. McNair, Ms. Erica Speller. J. Paul Truluck Magnet, Ms. Danielle McGee. Lake City High School, Ms. Lenora Caldwell. And Lifelong Learning, Panther Academy, Mr. Jerry States. To all of our school level winners, congratulations. Thank you all for what you do. Our third place winner, Ms. Erica Speller. Our second place winner, Ms. Lenora Caldwell. And our first place winner, Mr. Jerry States. Thank you all very much. Now we're going to recognize our teachers of the year for each school. Lake City Early Childhood, Ms. Chandrika Baptiste. Main Street Elementary, Ms. Robin Daniels. J.C. Lynch Elementary, Ms. Sharina Bradley. Atlanta Magnet, Ms. Wanda Weber. Scranton Elementary, Ms. Kaylin Bouchette. Ronald E. McNair, Ms. Kimberly Cooper. J. Paul Truluck Magnet, Ms. Dominique Martin. Lake City High School, Ms. Contessa Bradley. Lifelong Learning, Panther Academy, Ms. LaKasha Harrington. All right, here we go. Our third place winner. Let's congratulate all of them again. Thank you all for all of you. Our third place winner is Sharita Brown. Second place, this is Chandrika Betty. And our first place winner, this is Contessa Bradley.
Go ahead, Miss Brown.
Ms. Brown, I would like for you to share some remarks after the picture. She knows she loves to talk, but anyhow. And Ms. Bradley, we have your family here.
Never lost my word. She got me this time. First of all, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Like most of our kids, I didn't aspire to be a teacher. I wanted to be a model. You know, the stars, go to Atlanta. But then I found out that everything I wanted was right here at home. I found the love of my life, the best friends, the best family at Florence School District 3. Thank y'all for helping me be a blessing to these kids that I love so much. If anybody know me, you know that I love my students. And I hope that I've done something that will be a blessing to inspire them so they can reach their dreams. Because I've reached mine. I walk every day. Someone told me I walk up and down in front of the kids showing off mine.
This year, I had the privilege of talking with the rep from Johnston's, who said, I would like to give your Teacher of the Year a ring.
All right.
So this year, we are presenting our Teacher of the Year a ring. Congratulations. Congratulations again.
At this time, I would like to ask Mr. Stormy Gillian to come to the stage. He's from the Boys and Girls Club, and he has a special recognition.
Yes.
He's the well-dressed man.
Go ahead, Mrs. Over in the border.
Good morning. I am Mr. Stormy. I am the director of the Lake City Boys and Girls Club. I've been here now for almost a year and a half. It has been an amazing journey. It has been an amazing journey being here. Actually, I see one of my former students who just joined the Main Street team. Could you please, ma'am, stand up? I taught at Helen Capital High School for 16 years, and she was actually in my JROTC program. Ms. Katesi, you talked about being a model, but this is the ultimate model right here. We're going to continue to support you, okay? Anything it is I can do, please come by and see me. As I told Dr. Hickson when I first got here, first thing I did was I thanked her for allowing me to be a part of your team, being part of your family. Being a director of the Lake City Boys and Girls Club, it cannot happen without being a part of this district and having enough sense to understand that things really just began to kick off for us because she had the same passion, the same desire for children as I do. I didn't think that I could ever run into anybody who loved children more than I do. And I think that you guys have the greatest superintendent of the entire world. Since I've been here, there have been several people who have been very instrumental in helping me to take care of our babies. You know, I told Miss Lottie that many times that we overlook, quote unquote, the small people. When the gentleman was up here earlier and he talked about the custodians. We take the custodians, we take the bus drivers, we take the cafeteria workers for granted. And I'm not saying you literally, but a lot of times we do. And my mom and my dad always told me that when somebody does something nice enough for you, you have enough sense to tell them thank you. Give them that flowers while they live. And that's what we're trying to do here today. We were asked Mr. Blake to read these plaques and these awards for us. And I'm going to ask you to please come forward at this time. We have Ms. Lottie Brockington.
Ms. Brockington, on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club of Lake City, thank you for your hard work and support. And this is in recognition for Mrs. Stormy. Our next person, on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club, this award of recognition is presented to Ms. Abra Bowling. Thank you for your hard work and support.
I worry her all the time, guys.
Our next awardee, on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club, is presented to Ms. Valerie Mazan. Thank you for your hard work and support. And at this time, on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club, we would like to Ms. Lenora Caldwell, please support up to the stage. Ms. Lenora Caldwell. And last but certainly not least, on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club of Lake City, an appreciation goes to Dr. Laura Hickson, World's Greatest Superintendent. Thank you for your hard work, and commitment to our youth. Thank you so much.
Let's give everyone a vote of And at this time, we're going to have a closing song with video.
It's only 5 minutes, y'all. I did. Put it down in 5 minutes. We ain't gonna be setting up all day. Put on the baby.
everyone has a wonderful 22-23 school year. Lunch is at your schools, but no wrecks in the parking lot trying to get there. And Dr. Hicks wanted to let district office folks know to go to different schools.
Principals come right here.
The principals need to see Ms. Hope
Gibson.
Principals, please see Ms. Hope before leaving.
Good job, Main Street. I love the colors. I love the colors, Main Street Elementary.
It's what we do.
I'm coming to y'all.